And welcome, boys and girls. If you can't tell, this is not Gerald Vance. We have had quite the fun tonight dialing in this technical difficulty, but I think we may have figured some of it out. Just not how to replace Gerald with Tony. But hey, I'm Chris, and well, Mike just disappeared.
Sorry.
Oh,
I'm
there
hitting
he is.
buttons. I'm
Yeah,
hitting buttons. I'm sorry.
Mike's playing with his phone while this is all going on, so we're all just, we're just testing our destinies here. So again, I'm Chris, and dang it, I did it wrong. This guy over here is that would be you, Mike Ziegler, the button pusher.
Oh yeah, hey, I'm Mike
Yeah.
Z, and that. I thought we were talking about that guy there,
Well,
Mr. Tony.
and he's never coming back. We know that for sure now.
That was my fault. So
But yeah, so welcome. And for those of you who don't know who Tony is, well, you're missing out. He is quite a gifted artisan and does some really cool stuff with measuring tools and metal and just about anything else you can think of. And, you know, been following him for a while, and he definitely does a good job with putting together some cool stuff. It's about time for me to obtain one of your limited edition items that you put out from time to time.
thank you.
So I guess for those who don't know, tell us a little bit about yourself. That the ones who didn't read your biography and letter to your dating service.
The Tinder bio.
Yeah,
I've been a woodworker since I was 13, so over 30 years, and I've been a machinist for 25. And slowly over the years, I've kind of merged the two, and that's basically where I am now. Just the Cliff Notes version of it.
Well, that little humble introduction of yourself, yeah, definitely go check it out. Where can they go see some of your work other than your Facebook page? Give us some
The
good place to go.
Where I'm most active is Instagram. It's Hillview underscore WM. That's where I post the most. Everything obviously you bounce around between Facebook and Instagram, but I'm most active there.
Gotcha. Well, and there's a lot going on all over the place, and we've got lots of comments that were like, "Hey man, where are you at? What do we got going on?" Gary's and Nick says question mark question mark. So, and then Connor followed up, Connor's daddy, with question mark question mark. So, there's a
great
lot of
comments,
questions
everyone.
of
Keep them coming.
yeah. Yeah, those are insightful and intriguing. And, Nick finally says, hey, and we're off. Angus came in there with more question marks. But if you're following us on Facebook, you won't be seeing this there. You'll just be seeing dead space. And then Dave pops in with hi there. So, yeah, so everybody's kind of caught up with us a little bit, and we were a little slow to get started, and we'll just say it was weather related. Even if it wasn't, it was weather related.
No, not at all. It's beautiful here.
Well, no, whether or not we were ready or not. That's the weather related.
There you go.
So, anyway, it looks like they were waiting on us, and we sure appreciate all you guys watching and hanging out with us and waiting on us patiently while we work through these technical solutions.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, but we got them. We got them. And I did come in here, and I saw this post the other day when you posted that. And tell us a little bit about what made you decide to make a tape measure.
Well, I have like any maker, you always have a bunch of ideas, but a lot of times in my day job, a lot of my specialty stuff is smaller, more intricate parts. I program and run 3, 4, and 5 axis vertical machining centers, CNCs. We do. There's like 4 or 5 machinists and then a handful of welders in the company I work for, and we can kind of bounce around between each other. But my specialty is smaller stuff. Well, a lot of times tape measures have just turned into these these just monstrosities. And I understand why you need the 30-foot Fat Max that has the 2-inch wide blade that you can tell your buddy you can hang it out 25 feet before it snaps. I just don't use that. And when my dad has worked at a hardware store,
Mm-hmm.
similar to Klingswar, in that vein, for God, I think it's approaching 50 years now. And he always had the little 3-foot Lufkin that had the little tiny 1/4-inch blade on it. And I just always remember when he would empty his pockets, he'd have his keys and his change and his jackknife, and that little tape measure was always there.
Right.
And it just something that always stuck in my memory. And I was like, well, it'd be nice to make a pocket tape measure. And it's been, I just let things kind of fester in my head, like design wise. And a lot of times I try to block out time, but with having a full-time job and a family and making tools as a side business, there's not a lot of creative like me maker time. And usually I have to just kind of stop, get something out of my head, and then I can keep going. And that was it. And this was it was a bit of a challenge because I had, I bought a 6-foot tape, and the logistics involved to try to make this thing as slim as possible and small as possible, light as possible, but still be out of brass, which is a fairly heavy metal, but yet have some rigidity to it. So it's not just all like sheet metal and caves in. It
Right.
was a real design challenge. And I went through 2 or 3 times I had to make it where, I'd make it and, it could be like a 16th thinner, and you don't think that's a lot, but when it's in your pocket, that makes a difference. And that's kind of where I am. And I don't think it's finished. It's kind of a prototype, but on the other hand, I don't know if I'd ever want to sell them because the nature of tape measures,
Mm-hmm.
they're just a thing that fails over time. And one thing I try to do is push tools that are like heirloom tools.
Right.
A lot of times the antique tape measures are still in the box. You don't, and if you do have like your grandfather's tape measure, you can barely read the numbers on it.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things. It's kind of, for now, it's just for me, and it's like my daily driver. So when we're in Lowe's, I can pull out, and measure the board and make sure it's this or whatever,
I wonder how many comments you will get from people looking at you like, wait, what is that?
I should wear like a top hat and have like a twisted mustache when I do it.
Gotta have the monocle.
Yeah, the monocle. There you go.
Gotta go with that.
Set it off.
Make that out of Purple Heart too. That way it'll be, it'll all match.
Or somehow fasten a little section to it so you can make it part of your key ring for your car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that's always hanging out of your pocket, and your keys
I'm like,
are in your
this
pocket.
this thing. This is nothing.
This old thing. Well, do you have a picture of it, Chris?
Yeah, I had it up there a while ago. I gotta get it back.
No,
up
because
again.
there's one fine detail that'll tell you all about Tony in this tape measure.
Yeah.
Oh no, he kicked himself out.
I'm working on it. I'm trying to get a few. Hopefully, this doesn't crash the podcast.
It's looking rough.
Yeah. So to give you an idea, that's how small it is.
Yeah,
Something in
it's a
scale.
6-foot tape. That's what I used, because that was about a 1/2 inch wide, so you can actually use it. That was the one I screwed up.
Even the inside's mesmerizing.
How much is that one? I'll take the screwed up one. I'll take the screwed up one.
Yeah, we're in line for the seconds and thirds. We're not picky. like the scratch and dent section of the Tony shop.
I've got a bucket if people want to come and rummage,
Well, it's a bit far for me to drive, but I'll think about it.
It'd be
We could
worth it.
send Kyle up there. Kyle's upstate PA. He's in what? I mean, what's upstate New York? I mean, it's just a short drive.
Yeah, it's probably 4 or 5 hours.
What's Kyle doing? I mean, he's just sitting around doing that. So.
Oh. No, on the. Do you have the picture of the tape measure that has his logo and the brass screws going around it? Because originally you did stainless.
Yeah, that was the first one. Those were just screws I had on hand. And
everyone has that size screw on hand, I'm sure.
256.
Were they all flat
Yeah,
head?
it was pretty small. So
Yeah, they're all flat.
Nope, I don't have that one. I didn't see that on the Facebook. This is where I was grabbing.
Hey, he'll just do it for you.
Look at that. Look at that. You mean this one?
All right, so what I was going to point out was that each one of those screws are in a direct line with one another. Like they're not just haphazardly screwed on there. They're all geometrically beautiful. That's the best way I know how to put it. So are all the light switches in the house the same way? They're all going up and down?
No. That's the one thing is people think I'm like this OCD freak, and I can shut that off really quick. There's some things that are jerry-rigged around the house that Mackenzie would probably, she probably has a list, but I can turn that off really quick. I can turn it on. There's certain things where it really, the OCD kicks in, but if I'm like framing a house or building a chicken coop, no,
there'll be a few nails that are knocked over.
Yeah. It's not the end of the world for me. So.
Yeah, I like that. I like that you have that OCD when you need it, but it's not a constant thing.
Let's see. And I did find this square. I really like that metalwork. I got another shot of that. See, maybe show a little better detail of that. I really
that
really
was.
like that.
I've been doing more and more with. There's a lovely woman on Instagram, Jenny Bowers is her name, and she's got a large following on Instagram, and she does a lot of engraving. And I've had a lot of customers that request, sometimes I'll send a whole square off. The one that really was big was Izzy had one of my block planes, and he had it sent to her, and she did that, and that kind of kick-started more and more people. But that was actually one of the ones. Usually I send it to her and then I see pictures and it goes off, but I sent the blanks to her, she engraved them, and then I inset them in the square. So it was kind of nice to see the work firsthand.
Well, that's a good collaboration.
So what is in your inventory as far as things that you normally make like this? Because you do a run of about 100.
Yeah, it's slowly gone up over the years, but right around 120 to 130 keeps me from going insane. It's just of squares that I make. Mm-hmm. That style square is called a double square, and it's more popular in the machining trades because generally most people just have a combination square, and I liked that style, and it's the way it's gone is I made one, posted it, people like it, and it takes off from there. And I do squares. I have a small pocket level that I came up with last year. It's a takeoff of an older cast iron level from the late 1800s, with like my own spin on it, inlaid with wood and stuff. The big one is I have a small block plane that's infilled with wood, and that's I that's probably what I'm most famous for. And I also make a adjustable bevel that has a Damascus blade. That was another big one. That was a ton of work. So I haven't really done another run. They weren't as profitable as I like, so I have to kind of not go back to the drawing board, but just kind of really focus and figure out how to make things smoother. The Damascus was a huge learning curve. I didn't make my own, but just the finishing involved. I had to machine it and then grind it, harden it, and then you had to bring it up to a polish and then etch it. And then I found if there was any sins you had buried under that metal anywhere, it would stick out like a sore thumb, and that slowed me down tremendously. But I'm hoping maybe next year to do a run of bevels, because I know that's what is most asked of me. People tend to ask about bevels the most.
Because I'm trying to think, the last time you had a run on, I'm not 100% sure which one it was, but I remember it was like literally probably maybe 15 minutes to an hour people had before they were gone.
Yeah,
like
I did. It was 2 years ago. I did a run of squares, and I offered 100 spots, and it took about an hour, and I felt that was acceptable. That's enough time. If you can't, everybody has a phone in their pocket. You can set an alarm. Well, last year it was 100 spots, and it was 3 minutes. I thought I was watching my emails come in, and it like 10 popped up, and then 15, and then 20, and then talking to my wife Mackenzie about it. I'm like, oh, it's going good, and then all of a sudden it just slowed down, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, now it's just going to be 1, 2. Well, the email just got inundated, and it just couldn't keep up. And then I've got people on Instagram hollering at me that what, you're sold out already, and I had to go in and look, and this year was the same way. It was about 3.5 minutes for 100. I think it was I listed about 130 spots, 120, 130.
They are heirloom pieces. They are not just a run of the mill. I mean, the engraving one, yeah, that was the collaboration, but all of them are just spot on. I'd like to see the toss pile, because you do have them down to a science. Like, I don't see a flaw anywhere in them.
That's where my machining background comes in. I have a lot of experience in fixturing, and it's boring machining stuff, but I've got it to where I like the CNC right now. It's just blanking out squares, where I have a fixture where I can run 5 or 10 at a time. I can load a tool, and then I can go upstairs and I can help Mackenzie with dinner, or I can do something around the house, or I can be running another machine. And that's where I find the strength in a CNC is it's a helper that, you
like having another employee.
Exactly. So that's what I do. But yeah, I have to do everything in a batch too, or else it's not profitable.
Yeah.
Like a block plane would probably take 40 to 50 hours for me to make, but I haven't really sat down and done the logistics of it. But I think in a batch situation, it's only 10 or 12 hours, because I'm drilling this hole 30 times. Not I'm walking up to the Bridgeport. I got to figure out where the hole's going to be. I got to go get the drill and the reamer or whatever, and I drill the hole. And, you get rid of that setup time. And that's huge in machining, because whenever you go to a machine shop, 1 will cost you $500, but 2 will only be like $600, because the setup involved. And that's what I try to do. And I wish I could just offer tools all year, but it just doesn't make sense.
Well, they sell out in 3 minutes. That totally doesn't make sense. But there's a lot of time involved, I'm sure.
There is, and I enjoy it, and I'm very lucky that people are just so they really enjoy it, and I like I like the whole process, and I enjoy it.
It's always nice to do something a little different, and by limiting the number you do, it helps you get over that burnout that you would normally see if you were making these full time.
Yeah.
And just to let everybody see, that's looks like some of the molds or fixtures.
Yeah, that's the fixture that can hold 10 of my smaller, the 4-inch or the 100 millimeter, or it'll hold 5 of the larger body, the 6 or 12. Or I get people that order like 24-inch blades, and it's unwieldy and atrocious, but people order them, so I'll make them.
There you go. And there's I popped that up briefly earlier, but I'll leave that up for a moment and let everybody see. You can just see the beauty of the integration between both the wood and the metal in that.
That's a big thing too. Is as you see on most of the squares, there's my logo isn't there. It's customization, and that's one thing that I think people really appreciate is they can make something theirs, and they have the logo. I try to, like 99 times out of 100 people can have their logo. Sometimes I'll get their logo will look like the Last Supper, and I'll be like, I've only got so much room, so I have to work with people on that. But I think that the customization is what really people they like, because they can pick the metal, you can have brass, you can have steel, you can have stainless, and then you can pick the wood, whatever wood you want. And that's another thing that's been really interesting. I've had people send me wood from a tree from the childhood home. I had a guy that I have a beautiful piece of ebony that someone sent me that I see probably about once every 2 months when I open a certain drawer, and I go, I wonder when Mike's gonna
One
ask
day. One day it'll come out that drawer, I promise.
But and then that's what I think really, like I said, people make it theirs, and that's what I think really helps it become an heirloom tool.
Oh yeah.
It's also easier to find in the pawn shop when you're wearing the shirt logo of your own company. Like, it's that one.
That's the one thing I hope that my stepchildren in like 60 years are watching Antiques Roadshow and somebody hobbles in with a square or something. That would be the best.
And they're like, I can tell you all about that. 1 second.
Yeah, it'll be the one from Izzy's shop, and then they'll be like, "This is dual special. Mr. Izzy Swan owned this, and it was produced manufactured by Tony. We estimate the value at $1.2 million."
Wait, it doesn't have his thumbprint on it. Nope, sorry. Devalued. But yeah, that's the nice part too, is that the maker community is really gotten behind you on this, because they see the expertise in this. They see the precision. They know it's heirloom. This isn't just, there's tool makers out there that make really nice tools. And then there's a Tony Square. It's like, you just know.
Well, I try to really stand behind what I do, and if there's, I had a gentleman that some of the enamel came out of his square, and he was like mortified. He was like, I didn't, he's like, he's putting the blame on himself, but I just basically said, sometimes these things happen, and the engraving is so intricate that the enamel that I inset sometimes doesn't adhere perfectly. So I said, when you get a chance, just send it back to me and I'll re-engrave it and refill it. And that's another thing I think that stands out is I stand behind my work and that helps.
And things happen,
Yeah.
especially with that kind of stuff, with the adhesives and stuff. It happens.
Sure.
And by the way, Tony, I usually have a cat that likes to come in and visit and say, "Hey, what are you doing? You're not paying attention to me." And for whatever, she's totally confused because now I'm outside tonight instead of inside. So she's at the door scratching. So I had to go let her out. Like she's looking now like, oh, I don't know about this. You okay over there, Chris?
I'm okay. My computer's acting winky. But hey, I'm alive. So let's see if I can figure out how's that. Any better? Yeah.
Catching up.
That's what happens when you try to download a bunch of files while you're talking on a live stream. It's just so images that we will be bringing up in 3, 2. Well, maybe not 1 because it's got to load. How about now?
Oh yeah. Is that the small pocket line level?
Yeah, I that's the small pocket level. I offer 2 sizes. One is like roughly 3/4 of an inch square. I thought I shut my compressor off. I apologize.
We can barely hear it.
Amateurs,
Yeah.
It's one thing too. I was running squares, and I'm like, okay, you got to remember to shut the compressor off before the podcast starts. And of course, here we are.
As soon as you say that, and I've left mine on, and everyone's asleep, so now's
Murphy's
a really good
Law,
time.
is what it is.
Yeah. Tonight's been Murphy's Law.
We just talked about the Antique Roadshow. Welcome to the Amateur Roadshow. Now, I did notice that screw on the left seems to be about 2 degrees.
Slightly misaligned.
Yeah, but just 2 degrees. I mean, it's
that's
not much.
that one's the prototype. I got shamed online because the cap wasn't inset into the level, so I had to change that. So
you got shamed.
Well, it's there's a core group of people that are allowed to bust my nuggets. I'm lucky that. I mean, I see you see the comments that like Jimmy and Izzy and like Mark Spagnolo get, and I just don't know how they deal with people. I don't get trolls very often, but I had a guy that gave me a hard time about the tape measure because I didn't engrave the length on it. And I'm just, he's like, oh, that's all. How is anybody going to know how long it is? You pull the tape measure out to where it says stop. And I don't know what to tell you, and also it basically, in the description, it said, this is mine. It's not, it's a prototype yours. And just, so.
They got to find.
If I had more of these, I was just going to take like a metal stamp and just smack a 6 into the side and then do the underscore because someone will be like, well, is it a 6 or a 9 foot?
You got to do it with one of those trailer VIN number sets.
There you go. Yeah.
So it looks really cheesy.
Oh, awful.
Yeah. I was just going to say, just write it on there with a Sharpie.
I was thinking vinyl. Just stick vinyl right on it.
Let's see. There's one of the little block planes.
Yep. That's spalted maple.
That's a lot of pretty spalting.
Yep.
And in case you don't see the detail on the side, let me give you that one.
Yep. They're a traditional dovetail info plane.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to use it. I just want to keep it.
It's one of my favorite pictures I've ever seen of a tool I've made is I think it was like 2018. There was an event out in Oklahoma where a bunch of guys got together and they set up a bunch of tents and did woodworking or something, and Jay Bates was there, and Jay was one of the first guys that got my block plane, and he actually really jump started my tool making, and I'll get to that in a sec. But there was a picture of the plane sitting on a workbench, and the whole plane was just heavily tarnished except for 2 shiny spots where your fingers were. And I just loved seeing that, because all that, all that patina, you can clean that up pretty easily, but it just was neat to see that thing's being used, and that's what I really like. So, but as I was saying, I was doing my initial run of planes. I made the prototype and people like that, and I think I had 12 or 15 people that were interested. So I made Jay Bates. It was Woodworking in America. It was like it was the last Woodworking in America. It was in Covington, Kentucky. And Jay came up to me at an after party, and he was probably inebriated because he was talking to me. So, and he says, "I want to buy one of your planes." And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, I want to buy one of your planes." So I make the plane and I sent it to him, and it was around this time, and I saw that he got the plane, and I don't hear anything. I was looking at the tracking, and I don't hear anything. And a couple days go by, I still don't hear anything, and I'm like, "Oh God, it's a pile of crap. He doesn't like it." It's just, I'm just thinking all the bad thoughts. And so finally, I got up the gumption to message him. I'm like, "Hey, did you get your plane?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna do an unboxing video." And I'm like, "Oh." So I messaged Joel Crawford, and Joel's like, "You need to get an Etsy page now." And I'm like, and at the time I didn't really know what that. He's like, "I'll handle it. What do you want to do?" I said, "Well, I'll do like 3 batches of 10. So 30 planes for the next year. That should be okay." Jay released a video at 6, and by 7 I was sold out, and I had people emailing me. And that's what kind of started this whole craze and stuff. And I owe a lot to him because he made a really nice video, and he really liked the plane, and that kind of took off. I owe a lot to a lot of those guys in the higher position in the maker community, like Izzy and especially like Jimmy. Those guys have all been wonderful to me, and I appreciate them.
That's awesome.
Well, and that just goes to show that, a lot of people don't know and don't see your work. Once they see it, they definitely appreciate what they're wanting in what they get from you.
Yeah.
I think that too, and then people who may have seen it in some, in other posts and stuff, and didn't really understand what it was they were talking about, may have a better understanding now. As far as what that is, they've been seeing all this time. You've been doing this. How long have you been doing this? 2014.
I think it's 15 is when I started. I started doing I started out making branding irons for woodworkers because at the time in my day job, the owner of the machine shop would let us use the equipment after hours, which that's unheard of at a machine shop because those machines are 100 to 200 higher than that, thousands of dollars. But in his mind, the more we use them, the more accustomed we become to them, the stronger employees we become. So I started making branding irons, and that was 2000. That was 2014. I think it was late 2015 I started. I did the first plane, and then after the J video, when I took the order for the initial 30 planes, that's when I decided to make a double square, and it came, and then it just kind of snowballed from there.
Yeah, I saw this one. This is a very good view of just some of the detail and the customization that you're putting on there.
Yeah, that was a gentleman, Pancova Collective, I think, or he's Pancova Outdoors. He commissioned me to do that, the Purple Heart, with the
Purple Heart.
yeah Purple Heart with a Purple Heart.
I remember there was a post you had one time of just knurling, like you were just making the knurls on the nuts. Like, I don't know if it seems kind of redundant or kind of pointless to you, but for those who aren't in the machining, it's really fascinating to know that's how that's done.
Well,
I
yeah,
had no clue.
There's I because well, there's things I'll see things in plumbing and other trades that you're like, oh, that's how they do it, and you sometimes think this is like I remember I was in my early 20s, and I had a friend come over, and I pulled out a tap to thread a hole, and he's like, well, what's that? And I go, it's a tap. And he's like, well, what's a tap? And I'm like, it's to make threads in a hole. And his dad was like a contractor. He built hundreds of houses. And, I mean, granted, that's not what he used to build the house, but and he's like, oh, that's what that he's. And I said, well, how do you think threads get in holes? You don't just drill really crappy and it cuts threads, but yeah, it's those little those little
some
tricks.
People do.
Yeah, it's those little tricks that you see in 20-second Instagram or TikTok video that you're like, oh, it's neat, and that broadens your, and it may interest someone into getting a small lathe or something and making their own tools, and then that's a neat idea too.
Yeah, inspiring those who
Yeah,
maybe they didn't realize they wanted to get into that.
Yeah, because that's one thing I'll have people message me about, like wanting machining advice, and I think they regret it because I don't shut up about it, because they'll be like, oh, I was just wondering how you do this, or I'm thinking about getting a lathe, and I just ramble, and
That's called passion, Tony.
Yeah.
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 That's what it sounds like. When you think you're rambling, but really it's the things in your brain that are like, oh, and don't forget about this, and oh, there might be that thing too, and it all comes out. Chris and I both know full well about how that goes. Yep. And in case you were wondering why I'm looking down, I'm cleaning my feeler gauge or my gun cleaning kit. Sorry. It does seem like a long time ago for the branding iron days.
It was.
Yeah, see, I didn't even bother trying to get in line. I knew I'd never make the cut to get in any of your tools. So maybe once the fad wears off a little bit, then maybe I can get one of them. So I'll just keep biding my time. Right now, I don't have anybody to pass anything down to anyway, so it doesn't matter. None of my girls are into woodworking, but I have a grandson. So
there you go.
Could be the thing. Yeah, I think what I'll do is I'll just start sending you money, and then you can start wrapping it around those ebony blanks, and then one day,
until you have enough, then we'll go.
And I'm not saying that it's expensive. It's just for me and my budget. It's one of those things where I'm dreaming, but I know that I'm going to put myself towards it. So I don't want you to take that as in like they're expensive, because they're not. For what they are, they're not expensive.
I totally understand. I have people that want, that have signed up for planes or whatever, and things happen, and they'll have hat in hand, and they'll be like, right now it doesn't make sense, and I totally understand, and they do appreciate that there's time involved, and it's funny when you do look at like the plane that I make, it is expensive, but you can spend a lot of money on a hand plane. You look at some of these guys, and it's all just, but you can spend thousands upon thousands on a hand plane. And like I said, it's all in what your passion is.
Yeah.
People will spend tens or hundreds of $1,000s on a car, and some people see it as an investment, and other people are like, or it's like a watch or shoes or anything. It's what your passion is, so.
Yeah, my
Yeah, I
wife
always
has
wanted one of the
invested.
hand planes. Oh, sorry, Chris. Go ahead.
I was gonna say my wife's invested 27 years into me, and the returns just not been very fruitful at all.
It's a slow burn. It's a
Yeah,
slow
some
burn.
things just don't carry value throughout their lifetime.
Or maybe it's just taking her this long to figure that out. I don't know.
Oh, I'm hoping she doesn't ever figure it out because that would be bad. But
Just keep the honeydew list going. That's all I can say. That's what I've learned.
one box at
But
a time.
but I've always wanted to have like a shelf behind me and doing some sort of YouTube thing where I have the plane just sitting there, because it's one of those items that it just, yes, you should use it, but at the same time it can sit on the shelf and look just as good. Like everyone's got baseballs, signed by Babe Ruth. That is mine. That's my Babe Ruth baseball, the Tony Rouleau plane. One day.
Yeah, make it a set.
Oh, great. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, that's right. He did say it was only like $100 more for two, right?
Yeah.
That's how that goes. I guess my cat took off. Good. Okay.
Well, Gary, that might be the case for you. She'd have to pay somebody to take me because I think my reputation's already been ruined. So.
Not everyone's Gary Jones.
No, he's one of those that's loved by all.
So, are we allowed to talk about the slip and slide parties?
Absolutely. Sure.
Okay.
Well,
I
good,
wasn't
because
quite
I just
sure.
happen to have something.
Look at that look of determination.
It's
See, it's the eye. You have to lead with the eyes. You look at like all the racers and everything. They're always looking at the next turn or whatever. I'm looking down that piece of plastic.
You were envisioning the finish line. That is for sure.
And how long is that slip and slide?
It varies. It's around 250. The big guys can make it the full 250. The kids probably go about 220. 215, I'd say. It's usually the big guys or the really skinny guys. Maybe it's the surface area. The best guys are the guys that have the beer belly that's really hard. So I think you come up on plane quicker, and you have like that little contact patch, that seems to help. But I think we figured it out. It'll be 10 years this summer. I started dating my wife Mackenzie, and she had young children, and I just wanted something to do in the summertime, and I was like, well, I had a crappy slip and slide when I was a kid with the yellow banana and everything, and the yellow, and so I was like, well, my father worked at the hardware store, so I said, just can you get me a 100-foot roll of 6 mil plastic? And he brought it, and I set up some hoses. We just had a couple friends over, and they had some of the kids had some of their friends, and we did it, and it was a good time. And I think we did it once more that summer. But then the next year it was like, well, why don't we have like a barbecue with it, and we'll make it a thing. And then we did that for, I think, 5 years. And then I was like, well, there's some local people, makers. I'm like, why don't we make it? Because it was right after there was kind of, you guys had your thing going on, but there wasn't a lot. There was the woodworking shows in like the wintertime, but there was nothing in the summer. And that was back when there was still maker fairs, but the New York Maker Fair wasn't until September. So there was like this lull spot. So I said, well, I'll put out feelers. And I had people come from Massachusetts. And then the next year we had, the Crawfords came from Georgia, and we had people come from North Carolina. We had people come from Missouri last year. And I didn't even know them. I didn't know as Ben Makes is his name on Instagram. He's a great guy, but I was just like, it's like, what are you doing at my house? Why? And thankfully they had planned a family trip where they were going along the East Coast, and they made this a stop, and because it's like, I live out in a cow pasture. There's no sights to be seen. We have a nice view, but that's about it. There's no really like thing to bring you here. But they were passing through and they had a wonderful time, and it's just become a thing in the summertime. It's we look forward to it. We didn't have it in 2020 because of COVID and stuff, but we were able to have it in 2021, and that was nice. And we're doing it again this year in 2022. So
I was going to say on the New York State tourism, it should say, the attraction for that area would be 250 feet of 6 mil plastic and water.
Yeah.
Do we need to say any more?
We're up to 10 mil now because the kids tend to tear it. So we're up to. I spent the money and got the 10 mil. So we keep making improvements. We don't just pocket the proceeds. Can't charge anybody anything.
Yeah, because I think now you have like PVC pipe lining it. Is that right, for the water?
Originally, I had little water sprinklers that you just bought at the hardware store, and I tend to, like I said, I don't have OCD with things, but I tend to over-engineer stuff. I guess that would be the one thing I do. So I was like, well, we need, sprinklers every so I basically made like upside down U's that had spray, that would spray the track every so often just to keep it. And that's been a constantly evolving thing. And recirculating the water, that was another thing. I've got little submersible pumps that sit in buckets that I can keep the water, because the more water you have on the slide, the faster you go. So there's been little improvements over the years. And then, of course, when you have like 50 makers at your house, there's a lot of opinions, and well, what if you did this? And what if you did that? And it's like, it's once a year, guys. You got to pump the brakes. People are wanting me to put like a concrete slushway in, and it's like, no.
Well, it happens, I think it's like June or something like that. So if they want to come out a week before and start building, by all means.
If you want to come out and help me with this, but then that's the other thing is it was just it used to just be a day, and now people come the Friday before, and we're in a nice big open field, and we have people camp and spend the night, and they'll stay Friday, Saturday, and then in Sunday and help us clean up, and it's turned into a real just cool thing, because like on Saturday nights it's usually around 6:30. I call them the commoners, all the non-makers leave, and it's just us. It's just the makers and stuff, and that's when it's just my stress level goes down, because kids aren't wrapped around PVC and the plastic didn't tear, and everybody got food and ate, and then I can kind of relax, and that's when everybody can just hang out and have a good time.
On today's episode of Making Fun, the children ask for a huge slip and slide. We're going to do this in upstate New York.
I'm only about an hour and a half from Jimmy, so maybe I can talk. If they do a season 2, they can come up.
Yeah, on location. There you go.
Field trip,
Yeah.
Yeah, well, from what I was seeing from Pat Lapp, it looked like they were doing a season 2. They were already up there building again.
Are they? I saw they were out. They were out there for the premiere or whatever. But I don't know if I don't know if they might know and they just can't say anything, because I had messaged Pat the August before they filmed that, and I had a question for him, and I was going to send him something, and he's like, well, I'm going to be at Jimmy's for the Netflix show. And I'm like, oh. And so I messaged Jackman. I'm like, are you doing a Netflix show? And he's like, did Pat tell you? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, you weren't supposed to. I'm like, well, I won't say anything to anybody, but.
Oops. Yeah, my favorite video from Pat Lapp was the 3 hours of someone yo-yoing in order to mess with the YouTube algorithms. I thought that was the funniest thing I'd ever seen. And I just let it play in the background, even though it was like maybe 2 minutes worth of the same footage that he just spliced for 3 hours. Yeah, it was still hilarious. Just the fact that he did it.
They have a
Yeah.
different sense of humor.
Yeah. Now, so if I'm pretty sure if people want to look up the slip and slide party, it's like usually Tony Slip and Slide Party. I know there's some people that did drone footage on YouTube and they posted it.
Yeah, Jimmy did a blog. The best one is Keith Decent. He's big in the maker community. He did a little like blog a few years ago, and I think it really captured the grassroots. Just kind of it's turned into this maker thing, but it's always based around family and kids, and it's a good time. And Sterling has a good time, but that's it's Sterling, and it's fine, but it's really a good wholesome, and that's what we try to keep it, and but yeah, there's a handful of like that's another thing you get used to is there's multiple drones flying around during the day, and it's just a thing. So
It's gotten a little crazy over the 10 years, hasn't it?
yeah, and it's funny because Mackenzie and I are pretty introverted. If it's not making related, I usually have my head down in public, and I'm just not a very open person. But once making becomes involved, I tend to open up. And this is like the once a year party where I actually will not just be a wallflower, But it's funny, every once in a while, it's about once an hour, I have to go into my shop just to get away from people because there's like 100 people in my front yard. And I'll go in the shop and there'll be like 5 other people, just like one guy will just be like slowly turning the handle on my Bridgeport. And I'm just like, I know why you guys are in here too. And it's like, I'm not going to say anything. We can just be introverted together. You get your crap together, and then I have to go back out and hostess a little more. And so I have my little mini breakdowns where I have to kind of just clear my head, and then I go back out. So
There, here recently, a lot of people have been posting reminiscing photos of the party, and I don't know who took the shot. I'm guessing it's Crawford because the way he takes his pictures, it looked like his style. But someone caught that moment on your face when you were trying to sneak away, and it was perfect. The way you described it, I know exactly I know that face. It was just
it was probably Mackenzie or Crawford. They're both very good at taking photos and capturing those moments.
It's quality entertainment. Yeah. Try to think where it was, Chris. I'm pretty sure it's on the Hillview, but yeah, it's great because there's a red door he's about to go into, and he's just got this look on his face like, not now. Like, I gotta go.
I know which one you're talking about. Yeah. It could have been the kids will ask me or something, or Mackenzie will be like, because I'll look grumpy, and they're like, "Are you mad?" And I'm like, "No, I'm just in work mode." And now they'll ask me, "Are you in work mode?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm in work mode. I'm not mad at anybody. I'm just focused." So
that's what I gotta say. Kids ask me the same thing, like, "Are you mad?" And if I'm out here in the shop, especially, I'm like, "No, I'm just focused." Like,
yeah.
No, I just naturally have this brow thing going.
Yep. Stoic.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a word we can use. Are you upset? Yes.
I'm stoic. I'm going to throw that one out there tomorrow, as a matter of fact. But I do want to applaud you on being a stepdad, because that is probably the toughest job in the world.
But like anything, it's very rewarding. I love those 3 kids. One's almost 19, and then there's twin boy and girl that are just turned 50. And it's been close to 10 years I've been with them, and I love them dearly, and they make life great,
And your
it's
hair
funny.
is not all gray.
No. That Mackenzie does a wonderful job, being a mother and stuff. And I wish they were a little more involved down here, but I don't want to be the little league dad, but with makers, and be like, you got to get down and turn a precision shaft. I don't want to do that. But every
Just-
once in a
just what-
while they'll come down and they'll peek around, or they'll ask questions, and I like to just let it. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. So
Yeah.
Yep. That's the best way to do it. Or in my case, my dad worked so many hours running his own business doing furniture that I had to go work for him in order to see him.
there you go.
And
Yeah.
that's how that started.
Yep.
But yeah, so I just want to tell you that for sure, because whenever I see posts and stuff like that, like McKinsey puts on there, it's just like, tip of the hat to you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, it's a difficult job enough as it is, let alone trying to do it on the stepdad side of things.
Yeah, Chris has got it tough enough with 3 girls. That's what 3 girls does to you, by the way. There's no gray, there's no hair.
But hey, they're all grown now and all out of the house, and so now I'm kind of getting to do my own thing as long as the wife says it's okay.
Got to check with the boss.
And so what's the next new tool that you're adding to your shop? Anything on the horizon that you want to share? That
Purchase or make?
either way, something that's exciting to you that's going to be new. You're looking forward to doing.
I wanna upgrade my CNC mill. It's not really woodworking related, but you go bigger, you can go faster. I mean, I'm in that's my cellar. This is my cellar, so I only have so much room. But the equipment that I use, they keep their Tormach is the name of the, not to be confused with Tormac, but they keep adding to their lineup, and they have bigger and better machines. So in a couple years, that'll be a fairly large investment. But small stuff, just stuff that like I said, it's all machining stuff. So it's kind of boring. I added a turret to my CNC lathe, which is behind me, and what that does is that allow on a standard lathe, you have the tool post where you slide the cutter on to cut with. Well, what a turret does is it indexes. You can have up to 8 cutters or drills on it, and it just indexes around, so you don't have to physically change tools. And that was a huge game changer. Like I got that lathe last year, and when I would make the knurled knobs for the squares, that was almost 2 full weeks of evenings to make around 100 knobs. And with that setup, without the turret, to make 100 knobs was 8 hours. And that was 2 or 3 hours of fiddling around. So now as I get better and better, again, like I said, that can run in the background and just it's like I said, it's a it's just a remedial task for me to make those knobs. There's not any really, the fit and finish is all, because that's the other thing is I like, people tend to battle CNCs, but they only get you so far. The square, well, I'll have the square blanked out, but it won't be accurate enough for me. So I have to hand grind it, and then I hand finish it, sand, fit it to the blade, check it on, I have a granite plate that's ground extremely flat, and then I have a square that's like a master square. All that, that's where the real time comes in. Because when you look at, I think it's probably maybe 15 minutes to make a brass blank for a square. But then there's a couple hours of just fit and finish. And that's where it comes in. But it's those little upgrades that just make things quicker, and it allows me to do more. And that's one thing I want to try to do is, like I said, with that lathe that I bought last year, I want to try to get into, try not to be generic, but more round things. Try to do more things like that. As far as making tools, I have a ton of ideas, but I don't really have anything set in stone. I started messing around with making a tap wrench because I had a post. One of the first tools, and it's one of the first things you make in machine shop, because the lathe is where they start you out in machine shop school because it's easier. It's 2 axis
Mm-hmm.
instead of a milling machine or a Bridgeport. You make a little tap wrench. Well, I kind of want to make, I made that tap wrench 25 years ago. I kind of want to make like my own now. That's my own spin with the wood and the metal. But I tend to just like things just like come to me, and I'll just sit and stew on an idea for sometimes a year, or more. Like that tape measure, I had ideas that I wanted to do, and I just let it kind of like I said, fester while I do other things, and then eventually, like that. You didn't show it, but I made a protractor, and I didn't mention it either, but I made a protractor, and that turned out really nice. And that was just kind of a spur of the moment. I had what I thought was a good idea, and I just had to get that idea out and make that. And I think I'll probably make some of them, the end of this year, maybe next year, different versions of it, because there's the way I made it. It has a shelf on it to register against a board, because I like the old school. There's a bunch of different companies make them, but General made it's just a sheet metal protractor with like a blade coming off the side, and you just set the angle. I use it a lot in machining, but there's really no place for it to register against anything. So I made a nice brass one that's all engraved, and it has like a dovetailed like lip that really lets it register against the wood. But again, that was something that just kind of came quick. And then there's other things that just sit and fester. So I'd like to make some machinist tools, but that's a thing unto itself. I would love to make a micrometer. That's something I think that you could go really hog wild with as far as, ornamental, but there's certain processes that I don't understand or know, because that's another thing is I've had people bug me about making bigger planes, and I don't feel I'm a good enough woodworker to really know the nuances, because once you get into higher, the more the smoothing planes and things, there's certain angles, there's mouth openings where I just don't have enough experience yet. So that's why I've kind of shied away from making that, and also they're tremendously time consuming. So that kind of takes away from me making other things.
Yeah, that right, and materials.
Yes.
I'm sure materials, that's a lot more materials for a larger plane.
Exactly. Yeah. Because Harju wanted me to make like a number 8 plane, and I'm just like, my eyes bled just thinking about how much brass, and it's just like I can't think of that. So but yeah, that's one thing that I've kind of shied away from. But I want to have my core tools that I make. Squares and planes I think will always be there, but then I want to kind of flow in and out, and I think that'll keep me from getting burnt out. Because someday I would like to make this a full-time thing, but right now, with the kids being younger, financially, just in the benefits that I have at the day job, I kind of want to stick around there for a little while. And I think if I can keep building my name, eventually I can it won't be we won't be taking the plunge. It'll just kind of be walking forward. It'll be the next step. And I'm not a big risk taker, and that's just one of the things that I'm kind of like, I don't need to I don't want to cut my own throat over a passion that I already do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's the, the days are long, with working a day job, but you guys know how it is with working and doing stuff after hours. You just do it. But right now, yeah, exactly. So it's right now it works and it helps supplement, our income. And like Mackenzie's going to school right now for massage therapy, and I'm able to shoulder her not working, and she's able to go to school. And these are the things that this really has solidified why I do it and take the hours that I do, besides enjoying making these tools.
A lot of companies are knocking off other manufacturers and making them cheaper and gaudy. What you should do is make a pick and make it the most beautiful ornamental pick you can, and overtake the other gentleman who's making picks online right now.
Oh, I couldn't do that. Oh my god. I have people multiple times that are like, they'll send me like a link to a woodpecker's tool, and I'm like, oh, you should make this like yourself, with your style. And it's just like, that's bad karma.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know there's other in that company, there's ideas that have been, procured, I'll say. But yeah, that whole thing, it's a big pond. There's a lot of tool makers, so I can see a little overlap, but I don't want that juju.
Well, see, unlike that, you're not knocking it off to make it cheaper. You're knocking it off to make it better.
Yeah, and I
now, see, if you're going to do it, this is how you should have made this tool.
But
limited run of 35.
Yeah.
And they'd be sold just like that.
Just like that. I was thinking, so when you take that next step forward, are you looking for like a 2-minute window of sales?
Well, it would be nice to have like, the one thing I'm curious is you have to think I get probably 3 hours a night to work on tools. Well, you don't just open the door and start hacking metal away. I wonder what a 40-hour, a 50 or 60-hour week. Could I have 4 square sales a year, and then it turns into, maybe I can have an inventory where people just order, a brass square with Purple Heart inlay, and I just have to worry about making the inlay, and I fit it. And it's a month lead time instead of 6 months,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the thing. So those are the thoughts I have driving to work.
Well, next time you take a week off from work to stay at home and work, run a test and see how that goes for you.
It's funny how people, some people, I personally like staycations. I like to stay home and tinker in the shop, and there's some people that just at work that just couldn't fathom that. And I'm like, I just want to make parts and just do, I made this little sander to kind of make my life easier. And it's just a little belt sander with a table under it. It's to mimic what a metal cutting surface grinder is. And what it is when I glue the inlays into like a square, there's material sitting proud of it. Well, I used to have a little jig that I'd send. I have the small jet drum sander. I think it's the 1020. Is that what it is? Mm-hmm. The little guy.
Yeah.
Well, the inlay is just almost the same length it is between the rollers. So there's always that pucker factor that every once in a while you'll hear that thing catch and bong, and then now I've got to deal with like a big gouge in the square. And so what I did is I developed a little arm that I could attach to my surface grinder that had a belt on it, just a 2x42 belt. And then I could hold the part in a vise and just run it under it, and it worked amazing. But then it actually became a bottleneck because there was times that I needed to use the grinder for what it was intended for, grinding metal. So then that was the thing that I made on my little vacation, my week off, is I engineered this little machine, and it worked out well, and I got to use it a little bit on the tape measure, but I'm hoping that kind of improves processes and stuff. So
Yeah. Do you ever find that since you're moonlighting in the evenings and you have the full-time day job, that sometimes you just take days off just to catch up on housework?
yeah, I have to. I've actually been dealing with that. We have a mini split, like the air conditioner. It's got a heat pump in it, and that's what it gets cold, it gets frigid up here, but besides like January and February where we'll run our furnace, we'll use the heat pump to kind of heat the house. And I came home the other day and the heat wasn't on, and I wondered why, and I went outside, and the copper line set was kinked that went to the mini split condenser, and something had happened. The ground had shifted, and the condenser had leaned, and I think that's what put the initial kink in it. And I'm down there, and I'm squatted down, and I'm looking, and I'm like, oh, that thing's kinked. I'm like, as soon as I move that, it's just gonna crack, which it probably had already cracked. And we have this, we call him our kitten because he's our youngest cat. He grabs onto the copper pipe and he uses it to jump up onto the back deck. And he's like me. He's round, and so there's a little bit of weight there. And I know he didn't do it, but I know he added to it. He kind of sped the process along, and I'm like, oh God. So that's a perfect example. But therein is where the CNC is nice. I can get the CNC going, and I know I have an hour that I can go out and tinker with that. And I've been working on that. But yeah, I found that I'm most productive Monday through Friday after work. Just the way my mind works, and I don't know if it's physiology or whatever, but as soon as I get out of work, I can keep that going. As soon as the weekend hits, I don't have that get up and go as much. So that's when I'll tend to do the yard work or do the stuff around the house. And so it's a big balancing act is what it is. And there's times that things suffer, and I have to be aware of that. So
there you go.
Yeah. Well, it's going to have to do it for me. My phone is about to die. Yeah. Sorry.
Well, we do appreciate you coming on, and I know we had a rocky start behind the scenes, and I think we got it all figured out now. But yeah, we'd love to. Can't wait to see what you're going to come up with next.
Well, thank you guys for having me on, and I'm glad it did work out. I was excited to talk to you guys. So
yeah, thank you for coming.
Yeah, and for anybody listening to this on one of the audio-only channels, you might want to head on over to YouTube just to see some of the images of the products, or you can go right over to his website, and that website again is?
The website is www.hillview, HILLVIEW, hillviewtool.com, and that has information and pricing, and and generally it'll have when I'm quote unquote sold out for the year. I've taken all my orders for the year as far as I know, but that will generally have when the next sale is going to happen. So
you can get your reminder set on that.
Yeah,
for your next one.
The best place is Instagram and Facebook, just because I tend to keep that most updated. As far as announcements, I will prod you 800 times with posts to say, hey, don't forget, because I get the messages that, oh, I forgot, and I'm a sap, and I'm like, oh, okay, here's a free plane, Just
Oh wait,
I
that's how
don't
that
hand out
works.
free
That
planes, but I am a bit of a pushover, so I've had to kind of throttle that back. So
I don't know if you should have said that out loud. Oh man, but Tony, seriously, glad to finally have a chat with you, and hopefully one day we'll get up there for a slip and slide party.
yes, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, I'll bring the what is it we used to use it on there as a kid. It was not baby lotion, baby oil.
Yep. Yeah, we use baby shampoo, but the hill is just a touch too steep for the adults. You get going just a bit too fast. So it'll
Oh,
get smuggled out there. The kids will find it every once in a while, but we try to keep that down. So.
I can see Sterling coming up with a case of baby oil next time.
Moonshine and
nothing
baby
else.
oil.
Moonshine and baby oil. That's what his license plate, or not his license plate, but on the back of the window, Hillview bus, baby oil and moonshine.
mm.
Oh,
Oh goodness. Well, again, we appreciate it, and let's see. I think I've got something here. Where is it at?
you got an outro thing?
Yeah, that's what I was looking for. Yeah, first time looking in this back office, so I don't know what I'm looking at. I've got to find it. It's all over the place. But anyway, well, Tony, we appreciate it, and thank you for the Patreons that have followed us and submitted there. And for anybody listening on any of the other channels, we certainly appreciate that as well. Hopefully, we'll see everybody back next week at 9 p.m. on the dot. Hopefully.
I won't be involved, so you'll be on time.
Well, we'll see. All right. Thanks, guys. Y'all have a great night.